This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
Welcome back to another ABJ podcast presents Tornado Tag. We're doing the history of Sputnik Monroe today. This will be the last non-numbered ABJ podcast. So all these Tornado tags, they will be numbered going forward after today's episode. At the end of March, everything will go to numbered sequences. So the ABJ podcast will not just be interviews. So if you just see ABJ podcast, that's the normal podcast interview, or it might not just be interviews either. There might be something else going on there where someone's telling a story or presenting something. We're gonna bring back Not Cool in High School. We're gonna bring back Not Cool in High School horror. Eventually, Banging Beers and Blazing Buds, and Tornado Tag are gonna be in that lineup as well. So we're gonna keep Tornado Tag on Sundays. Today we're doing it on a Saturday because I am going to a wrestling show tomorrow. So we moved it up a day early, but the next episode that you're going to see once we get through everything. So right now, Miles Penn is out, episode 109, just dropped today. Handsome Mac 0, 110, 111 will be Frightmare. Do not ignore the 111 in the corner. That's 112 for Cheeseburger. I forgot to upload the new one. And then once Cheeseburger episode airs, that'll be on Thursday. Is it the 30th or 29th?
29th. Yeah,
29th.
It's a leap year.
Our first episode Tornado Tag will be on the 3rd, and that'll be episode 113, WrestleMania 15 review. And then on Tuesday, we'll be live again. I'll be doing an interview. I'll be doing my review of Blink-182 one more time. And then these will all be live then. And then our first live interview back, episode 1, that'll be 115 with Tim Mingle, Pullbox Pals, and he's a local buddy of ours here in the Pottsville area. So we'll be bringing back interviews.
I could literally open my window and yell to him right now.
Yes, they are very close. So that'll be our episodes coming up forward. We have a lot. I have a whole list of other episodes, and then more people who are going to be joining me for these Not Cool in High Schools. Who knows? Maybe BP. If you had to pick a piece of media that you're really popular or you really fond of that you would can do a podcast on and talk about. Tell me why it's Pulp Fiction.
Because I have a giant Pulp Fiction poster behind me.
Love that.
Tarantino in general. I've always said Pulp Fiction is my favorite Tarantino movie, and it probably still is, but every time I watch it, Inglourious Basterds just creeps a little bit closer and a little bit
really
closer.
Good. So here's a bit. I'm gonna put it out to you live and put you on the spot. Do you want to be the guest who does all the Tarantino movies with me? We watch them in chronological order.
We
like once a month. Like we just drop once every couple months or every couple
we
weeks.
Can do that.
You join me on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and we do a movie review. So what do we start with True Romance? Is that how we do it?
Do you want to do the ones he wrote, or just the ones he wrote and directed? That's the.
Well, how do you feel? What do you think we should do?
I like
directed.
I like True
I have
Romance.
A question.
Go ahead.
How many? Look, I'm still new to most media, right? How many Tarantino movies are there?
I feel like when I try to, I met. Never mind. I'm not gonna out you for your profession. And it's just I met this chick in a location, and she's never watched TV. I feel like I found a Mormon.
We met at a freaking warehouse.
Yeah, but I mean, then.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, where I met you.
I was in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, she was in entertainment, and she would never watch the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to say, if you count True Romance, I believe it's 10 because you have True Romance, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, the 2 Kill Bill movies, Inglourious Basterds, or Death Proof, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained. It's way more than I thought it was. Now I go through them all. The Hateful Eight, and then Once Upon a Time in 11.
Well, if y'all do one a month, that'll take you to the rest of the year.
Yeah. All right.
He did say that he would only do 10, and he hasn't done a movie since Once Upon a
But
Time. in
isn't
LA.
he on the fence of
Well, just-
possibly doing Kill Bill 3 with Uma Thurman?
I was gonna say, does Kill
There-
Bill count as one?
There was always that. I think he does personally count Kill Bill as one movie, and that's why he's at 9, even though it was too long and he got cut up into 2 movies.
Yeah.
That's been thrown around, but I don't think that's happening. The Kill Bill, because it became a thing just because.
The story of the one girl's daughter could be.
Yeah, like the one girl is like, if you still feel some kind of way about this, when you're older, come see me or something.
And
like
then that little girl grows up to be Zendaya, and Zendaya is the new.
No way.
No, that's how I would book it. I'd try to cast Zendaya. I can't hear you. That's terrible timing. But yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on. Finishing move. You're
I already got it.
That's hilarious. Anyway, so yeah, so we'll be doing some Pulp Fiction stuff together, but then we'll have we'll talk about this week in wrestling. You have not seen Elimination Chamber, unfortunately.
No, I did
Woke up
not.
super early and did it. I thought it was a good show. I really like the less matches, right? So I'm a fan of the idea of only having the 4 matches in one pre-show match. I thought that was really good. I thought it flowed a lot better.
It depends. And one of the reasons I decided not to check it out through the day today is because I did see like it was a 4.5-hour show with like an hour and 15 minutes of actual wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Yeah. The recap is a little too. I felt like watching it maybe because we were doing the hangout and we were all chatting and having a good time. I didn't think. I don't think it was. It wasn't painful. All the recaps. But
Right.
now that but also how you're saying it was a 4-hour show. I think with we didn't do the full recap. We didn't do the full, we started as the pre-show match started. And I think our stream was 3 hours and 50 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm fine with shorter shows,
Less matches is better for me.
In mainstream wrestling and in indie wrestling, I think a shorter, tighter show, 2.5 hours is the perfect length for a show.
Agreed. Yeah. It wasn't terrible. I liked the flow a lot better. I thought the matches were pretty good. I thought a lot of matches really showcased. I didn't hate it. I thought it was a good show. It sucked. It was at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well,
yeah.
That's how people in Australia and the UK and Ireland and all these places feel with every
week.
Every wrestling show.
Suck it up, Buttercup. That's all I'm saying. Listen, you only
can't do it for a
you
day.
only get
they
one.
Need to suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up
No.
because I don't like it. Yeah.
That being said, I love the UK shows because I'm all about a wrestling show being on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. Leon the King says he likes his shows a little bit longer. I can't do these 5-6 hour pay-per-views.
Yeah, to each their own, but the AEW ones especially, where it's like 5 hours and
they gotta chop
16 matches. It's like every show they do is WrestleMania 4.
Yeah, it's too much. I want to try drinking out a show. That's a bold move. That's a bold move. We've been there a few times.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
All right. Well, is there anything else
drinking it
coming up that you want to talk about? Anything you want to cover? Anything that we haven't? Oh, drinking out of a shoe. Not
I guess that's a thing in Australia. It's like because they did a thing with Grayson Waller and Rhea Ripley at the press conference where they both poured beer in their shoe and then drank out of it. And I'm like, ew. No,
that's a great bit. If it's a brand new shoe.
Yeah, and they literally took their foot out of the shoe, poured beer in it, and drank.
Yeah, but I'm saying I feel like that's a shoe they just bought today. That's like
but their foot was just in it.
Yeah, but if you're clean and it's a fresh sock and it's a fresh shoe,
and you just walked out,
on stage and it now if they walked around all day long in Australian heat and sweating that thing and the whole nine, that's gross. That's crazy gross. I would not drink out of where we live in Pennsylvania. We get criticized because New York's all about the fashion. Everybody in New York is dressed to the nines. Philly PA people are a little more rugged. You know, we don't we dress how we dress. We do what we do. Like I'm not taking someone's shoe off in Philly and drinking out of it that they've wore for the last 4 years. And you don't want to go to Kensington and start drinking out of shoes. Yeah, just not a thing you do in the city of brotherly love.
Like that would require people in Kensington to wear shoes.
Yeah, like where we live in Pennsylvania, most people statistically in School County probably have the same shoes for the past 10 years. You know what I mean? Like they're not out there rocking because we live in a coal hole. Like wearing nice shoes and stuff like that is just not a thing. Like we barely even have jackets in this area. Everyone wears hoodies all year. You know what I mean? Like it's 8 below. Yeah, hoodie weather. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing we do. Hoodies and shorts.
I wear hoodies all year long. It could be middle of summer.
Yeah,
still
it's
weather.
very rare I wear a jacket. Like, oh, it's cold out, get your jacket on. Oh, let me just throw my little tiny hoodie on and
Right.
call it a day. It always backfires though when your car breaks down in the winter. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not drinking out of shoes. But weekly wrestling, not much to cover. We're on the road to Revolution. Elimination Chamber just happened. So that's all kind of out of the way.
Now we'll have the WrestleMania build in overdrive because that's the next show.
Yeah.
That's like the next show.
TNA had Scott D'Amore. We didn't talk about last episode. Scott D'Amore let go. Now supposedly they said Tommy Dreamer's in charge, and Tommy Dreamer's like, no, I'm not.
No, and in fact, one of the big controversies there, unless it's an angle, is that there were people with the hourglass.
Yes,
the
hourglass tweets.
Basically the message being I'm counting down the time until I can leave. And I think it was like Jordan Grace, Ace Austin, Mike Bailey, Masha Slamovich, a lot of their top stars.
Your young talent that you should have been rocking with and building the company around.
Well, the one guy you can blame for that is the guy they're sticking up for. Scott D'Amore was the booker.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, what the hell's happening? Like,
because not everybody cares about being the world champion. Some people just like their job.
I get that, but like, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating as a wrestling fan when you're like, yo, here's the future of your company, and then like, oh, let's bring Bully Ray in to wrestle Scott D'Amore for the main event of this pay-per-view. I don't want that.
It was Josh Alexander, and it was the opener.
Well, I thought Scott D'Amore wrestled in a match.
Oh, well, I don't think it was a main event.
Oh, well,
Scott D'Amore isn't really a full-time wrestler. Hasn't been for a long time.
Good. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I honestly think if whoever signs him, like whoever gives him a job, all those hourglass people are going to look at the other company.
Yeah, the one thing that made a lot of sense to me, there was that talk that he was offering $10 million plus taking all the debts for TNA by the NWA.
Yeah,
by the NWA.
Do you think TNA didn't sell to him because they possibly are waiting for WWE's offer?
No, I think TNA, the company that owns TNA is Anthem Sports and Entertainment or whatever. I don't know the exact full name, but Anthem. And they see TNA as a content farm. They bought TNA so they can have cheap content for their TV networks.
Yeah,
they have the Fight Network in Canada. They bought Access TV in the United States, and this is in-house content. It's basically what ROH was to Sinclair Media.
Yeah,
it's content we own that we can produce fairly cheaply. We don't want to, and this is reportedly what the big conflict was between D'Amore and the management in Anthem is he wanted to make a run. He wanted to try to get a little bigger. He wanted to spend money. They say, and this is all rumor, that he was really, really close when he was kind of between WWE stints, that he was really close to signing the deal with Braun Strowman. And they were going to do like Braun for Glory instead of Bound for Glory. And they were going to bring in Braun Strowman as like this big star. And TNA at the management at the very last second said, no, it's not in our budget.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to, anything we haven't talked about, anything you want to plug, put over before we get into our main topic?
As far as I think we kind of brought up everything. I don't think there was anything major AEW wise. They think they're really building toward Revolution. They're really building toward big business. And me personally, 2 weeks from tonight, PPW will be in, I almost said Broadheads. That's where we used to be. We're in Slatington at the Slatington Expo Center. Just announced about a half hour ago another match. Big Dan Champion and Havoc. They were former tag team champions.
Wow.
Havoc turned his back on Big Dan, and they're going to go one-on-one. And then yesterday, I believe we put out there that it's going to be not Facade. That was a few days ago. It's going to be Clutch Adams and VSK, who tore the house down at the last show. They're going to be in a three-way with Brad Baylor, who is watch him now because kid's going to get signed someday. Kid's going to be probably in WWE. Yeah. Looks like he stepped out of a central casting for WWE. 19 years old, great look, very good in the ring, can cut a promo. Big things in the future for that kid.
Also announced title match. One of our friends from the podcast Harleen Lopez getting a title opportunity.
Yeah, Harleen Lopez and Danny Moe for the women's title.
She turned some heads, huh? She impressing
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. So got the win. You get a win. You get a title.
I told Paul, I said, you're gonna bring her in. You're gonna be happy with her. You're gonna be into what you see. She's very talented.
Yeah. So a lot going on there. The scourge of that women's division though has been Sammy Chaos, who has just been running through everybody.
I think she's one of those people, and I'm not criticizing you guys in management, but it's one of those things like, man, let's enjoy, Danny Moe is our champion now, because the second we can no longer contain Sammy Chaos and we have to give her a title opportunity, it's gonna be hard to take the title off her.
She's a tough customer.
Yeah, she's gonna be fucking people up.
She's beating guys. She's beating two people at once. She's
a problem. She's gonna be a problem for the women's division.
She is absolutely a problem.
She wins that title. Roll the credits. It's over.
Stay tuned. We got a lot of fun things coming up. But yeah, there'll be Born the Run on March 9th. If you can't make it to Slatington, it will be either live on Premier Streaming Network or will be on Premier Streaming Network not that far after that.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, let's get in
real quick. I'm so sorry. The show stealer, because I said Facade, and I meant to mention this. The big show stealer, in my opinion, for this one's going to be Facade against Diego Hill, who doesn't have a big name up here. He's out of the Carolinas, but him and Facade, I don't think their feet are going to touch the ground much at all in that match. That's going to be.
Is it almost like a Facade versus who was the dude with the dreads that came to PBW that one time? JXT or something like that. He was the dude with the long white dude with all the dreads. His manager that show was the former WWE girl. Like, she came out with him.
Yeah, it might have been before I was really.
We were at the show together.
Oh, were we?
Yeah, it was like one of Facade's first matches. And he wrestled another white dude with dreads, and they were both like high flyers. They were all over the place.
It's escaping me.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. It was like an abbreviation. It was like I don't want to say JTG because that wasn't it, but it was something along those lines, like JXT or something like that.
I think I know what you're talking about, but the name's not coming to me.
Was he billed as an Australian? I don't remember.
I know who you're talking about. I think he's Italian, and I can't think of the name.
Yeah, he was very talented. But it's supposed to be a match like that, two high flyers just kind of bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, it's gonna be something.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into our topic and have some fun here tonight. Tonight's topic, I'm very, really happy about. We did this before in the previous Tornado Tag. Not trying to toot our own horn, but if you go back and watch some of the older content, I thought we did a pretty good job on covering certain topics and talking about things. And you'll see how crazy accurate we were on some takes and how many we were completely wrong on.
Oh,
we don't talk about those. I don't make it.
You only remember the hits. The misses never happened.
Yeah, Beatles. No one ever talks about the songs that didn't get the Beatles in the top charts. You know what I mean? But So tonight's topic is going to be Sputnik Monroe, very, very legend in the business. Someone who stood up for what was right. You know what I mean? Even though it probably got criticized a lot for his takes but he always meant, I guess you would say, good by his intention.
Well, he I forget what he said. But somebody asked him that. He's like, do you see yourself as a do-gooder? I think somebody else was like, no, I see myself as a doer.
I love that. Dude, we did his topic and I became such a fan of Sputnik. I was like, man, what a good human.
I got turned on to I got wise to what Sputnik Monroe was all about by a movie that came out about 10, maybe 12, 15 years ago called Memphis Heat, which was all about the history of wrestling in Memphis. And Memphis wrestling, there's nothing quite like it. Memphis wrestling is probably the most unique and wild of the territories. It was the last of the territories. It lasted longer than any of them. And Sputnik Monroe is right there with Jackie Fargo and Jerry Lawler as one of those guys that was really one of the big stars of that place.
All right, well, let's take it away. Let's get into it, BP.
So even though he's synonymous with Memphis wrestling, Sputnik Monroe is from Dodge City, Kansas. So it's funny because not funny, but it's kind of ironic because a lot of Sputnik's story is very, very much rooted in the civil rights movement and in race relations in America, and specifically in Memphis. And Kansas and Memphis are both huge parts of it. Kansas is one of the big reasons we have the Civil War, bleeding Kansas. Is it going to come into the Union as a free state or a state where they allow slavery? And so Roscoe Monroe Merrick is born there on December 18th, 1928, and born not an orphan, but born with let's just say Christian Cage could have a feud with him. His father did pass away before he was born, died in the plane crash about a month before Roscoe was born. And he was really mainly raised, at least early on, by his mom's parents, his grandparents, and by one of the like a maid slash nanny, like a somebody who worked in the home who was black. So he was from a very, very early age, kind of very, very, very
Race cultured.
race cultured, especially for that time. Kansas is the Midwest. It's not as segregated as the South. So there was a lot of times there was that de facto segregation that kind of still exists. Okay, this is the black area, this is the white area. But in the South, you got to remember this is the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s we're talking about, even in the early 60s, where a lot of the South is officially segregated. Like, this is whites only, this is blacks only, or blacks was the term for the time. Black people only, white people.
You know
only.
what's insane when we talk about, like, you have today's time when people are like, and I'm not trying to make political out of this or anything like that, but people are like, oh, I don't know why people still talk about it. If you just don't talk about it, it goes away. Racism is not a real thing anymore. That ended so long ago. Your grandparent was probably around a time where segregation was still kind of a thing. Like your grandparent, great grandmother, like it's only like 2.5 people ago. You know what I mean? Like it's really not. Yeah, it's not.
Especially,
it's People try to make the time frame seem it's longer ago than it really was.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about the places where Sputnik Monroe worked, like Memphis and Alabama, the Gulf Coast and places like that, Mississippi. So his mother did remarry when Roscoe, he's still Roscoe at this point. He's not Sputnik name. Yet.
I had a dog named Roscoe. I named a dog named Roscoe. I just thought it was a badass name.
So, and we'll get into how he becomes Sputnik, because that's a big part of his story. That is a moment. And as we talk about this, a lot of the people listening might think, oh, this should have been a movie. And there was talk about doing a movie on Sputnik Monroe. Like, I think it was in development at HBO, and they should probably get on that, because this would make a great story. So
That's why I picked again for a topic. It's fantastic.
Roscoe's mother remarries when he's about 4 years old to a baker, last name of Brumball. So he becomes Roscoe Monroe Brumball. And he did try his hand at getting into baking, and he did try his hand at wrestling in high school, like the amateur style wrestling. But eventually he got into pro wrestling, and this is in the early 1950s, late 1940s, early 1950s. So the wrestling business is very closed at this point.
Do you know how wrestling found? Because like at that time, you have to know someone who knows somebody to like.
Yeah, you either got in because you knew somebody, or you're a second generation or something like that, or you were recruited into it. If you were like a very successful wrestler, like a Vern Gagne or a Danny Hodge or somebody, they would kind of recruit them into it. But usually it was like being in the mob. You had to know somebody. You had to know a guy who knowed a guy. Mm-hmm. And another way you could get into it, this is around the time, and this is where pro wrestling kind of came from, or one of the very branches of pro wrestling came from, was the carnivals. So they would do these traveling carnivals, and they would always do a thing where there was a strong man, and if you could last 5 minutes with him, you win $100 or something like that. And usually it was either a guy who's just really strong, or a guy who was what they called a hooker, and not a sex worker, not a prostitute. A hooker was somebody who knew how to hook in a hold and mess you up really bad, and you wouldn't be able to get out of it.
And shades of early, like, one of those people was William Regal at one point in time.
Well, he came from the carnivals. Yeah, he came from the carnivals.
He was like 14 years old, wrestling grown men and hooking them.
yeah. Because if you knew like a certain hold, like if you got a guy in that hold, they were done.
Could you imagine going to like a carnival or a show, and they're like, "Who wants to wrestle this 14-year-old boy?" And they're like, "Don't beat his ass." Like, he smacks you. He smacks you around.
So the way they would do this sometimes it would be a thing where the person they pulled out of the crowd was in on it. They were like a plant, mm-hmm. and it was just a worked match. Or they would just pull people out, and they would do that. And if for some reason, usually the ring was set up by like a stage by a curtain, and they would say if it got a little tough for the guy who was working on the carnival side, they would try to move the guy to the curtain, and there would be a guy behind the curtain with like a lead pipe or something who would just hit the guy in the back of the head and knock him, and say, "Oh, I punched him."
Got him
So
real
that's
good. It got him
that's
so
a-
good you couldn't even see it.
But Sputnik started challenging some of these guys and did well enough that they actually brought him in. He became in on it. So he got in through the carnivals, and eventually he becomes a wrestler on promoted shows. Like the NWA in the late 40s is in its infancy. Like the NWA as it existed into the 90s was starting to come together. I think it came together in like 47, 48. And so he starts working there. He was wrestling as Pretty Boy Roke was one of his names. A lot of times he was Rock Monroe, which I guess was supposed to sound a little bit like rock and roll, Rock Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come out with like a guitar and things like that. And he was always looking for a way to get publicity. He was always looking for something new he could do. He had an eye for getting eyes on him. And that's something that's very important about the story of Sputnik Monroe is he knew how to draw attention to himself. In fact, there was one part where he got hit in the head with a chair in a match, and this is legend has it because it's wrestling. Wrestlers are liars and thieves and con men. So he gets hit in the head with a chair and he's bleeding all over the place. And he said that when the hair around the wound grew back, it grew back white. So he almost looked like a skunk from the front. He had dark hair with a big shock of white in the middle, which he probably died. I mean,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he didn't.
He bleached it. He peroxided it.
Yeah.
Doesn't peroxide bleach your hair sometimes?
Controversially, but in his time, I'm sure that yes, that's what was used.
Yeah, and he has a very punk rock look when he dyes his hair and has the white skunk patch.
Yeah,
he's pre-punk. He's pre-punk.
And he was very famously almost always a heel, almost always a bad guy. He would call the crowd like I think I thought I had it here. He would call them like liver lip little pukes was one of those things he would always call people.
That.
Liver lips.
Liver lips.
Liver lip little puke.
I've actually heard that entirely too much, I think.
Liver lips?
Liver lips. I don't want to blame it on the South, but I feel like I wouldn't have heard liver lips as much growing up as a kid if I lived in Pennsylvania. That's all.
No,
probably
I don't think liver lips wasn't.
Yeah. Probably not. Just call people assholes. It's easier.
Yeah.
Jabronis.
That's very much a wrestling thing. I prefer ham and egger. You're a ham and egger.
Ham and egger.
Because it's the easiest thing on the menu.
I'm bringing back liver lips.
Liver lips.
I'm bringing back something
yellow bellied.
We'll get to it later. I'm bringing back something too. I'm stealing something from Sputnik. But he was more of a traditional heel, and he would get heat, obviously, like a lot of the heels did. He would get stuff thrown at him. He was stabbed a few times, got shot once, just because wrestling fans were crazy back then. You have the old grannies that would stab you with a hat pin. And there was one part where one of the things he would do is he would get somebody in submission hold and just say he wouldn't let go until they quit or they starved to death. But they weren't getting out. And at one point at one of these shows, like a cop, like a local sheriff is there, and he pulls his gun on him and says, "If you don't let him go, I'm going to shoot you." And he literally counts to 3, and then Sputnik lets him go.
Oh shit! Yeah,
the kayfabe days were something.
Dude, the Junkyard Dog when he did the blind spot and the guy pulled the gun over the guardrail and he has to either say, "Am I now blind and can't see a gun's over my shoulder about to kill my friend?" or just hope he sucks at shooting. And he chose sucked at shooting.
that was Michael Hayes. That was Michael Hayes that got the gun pulled on him. Don't worry, dog. I got you.
Yeah, hope he's a bad shot because I can't.
New Orleans was wild. Like the heels used to hide in the boot of a babyface's car to get out of there. New Orleans was crazy. New Orleans was crazy, and so is Memphis, and so is Alabama. And this is where Sputnik worked. Like not so much New Orleans, but like the southern area, still Alabama, Tennessee.
Piper didn't wear a leather jacket because he wanted a leather jacket. He wore a leather jacket that was reinforced so he couldn't get stabbed anymore.
Yeah, he had to wear chainmail back then. Like that whole Ric Flair Jack Veneno story in the Dominican Republic. Like Ric Flair was supposed to win that match, But he called it in the ring like, I'm not gonna live. I will die if I win this match, so I'm gonna lose the title and live.
Yeah.
So Sputnik Monroe is, and now we're at this point, he's still Rock Monroe, and we're in the later part of the 50s, like 57. This is around the time the space race is going on. It's the early days of the Cold War, and the Russians, the Soviet Union, did launch that satellite Sputnik. It's the first satellite that stayed in continuous orbit. And around this time, Rock Monroe is coming from Washington, D.C. all the way down to Alabama. That's a long drive. And he got a little tired along the way, and he saw this black man hitchhiking on the road. He goes to the black man and says, "Can you drive?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could drive." He's like, "I'm real tired. You can get the lift, but can you do the drive? And can you drive me to the TV station?" So he drives to the TV station, and people are incensed that he is traveling with a black man because it's 1957 in Alabama. So he is getting so much heat just outside, and he knows this is something. So he goes to the guy he picked up. He's like, "You're coming with me. Yeah, we'll go out and party after, but you're coming with me." So he goes out in front of the crowd in this TV studio. This is in the days of wrestling in TV studios, which was a thing until the 80s.
I wish we could still. I mean, technically, it's still kind of. It's going to be done kind of this Sunday. It's not a TV studio, but closed circuit wrestling, and you film it.
Yeah,
and stuff.
The closest thing to it recently was NWA Power.
Yeah, Power.
But
Lucha Underground, that would be considered close.
But not like this. Not like usually studio wrestling was for one thing live.
Yeah. Would NXT be considered, because it's almost like a studio? It doesn't travel, it stays in one location.
Yeah, NXT is very close to it as well.
Yeah,
but the ones that people really remember are Memphis Wrestling, and we'll get to why in a little bit, and the mothership. It became WCW Saturday Night, but it was called World Championship Wrestling forever.
Yep.
Saturdays at 6:05 on TBS. So it literally is usually at the TV studio, like WMC in Memphis was the big one, at least later on. So Rock Monroe has this match, and he has an interview before the match or after the match, I'm not sure which, but he brings out the black man he came to the studio with and talks about how this is his friend, and he kisses the man on the cheek. So not only is it a man kissing another man on the cheek, but it's a white man kissing a black man on the cheek. And people are flipping out in Alabama. And they said there was this one old lady who was just yelling something lover at him.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that. And she was so loud and so...
Is your other mic turned on?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, just in case, mute it, because it sounds like something's banging off the other mic that you're not using. Like, it seems like something's rubbing up against it. I'm getting like a rubbing up against the mic noise.
Oh, okay. Did it stop?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think because this chair rocks. I think it was moving too much.
Okay.
So the woman is shouting so much at Rock Monroe that the security guard is like, "You have to calm down. You can't use that language or I'll have to throw you out of here." And she's like, "You're nothing but a no good Sputnik." Because the worst thing she could think of is like, you're a commie or this, you're a Sputnik. And
love it.
It is like the light bulb goes off over Rock Monroe's head. And from there until the end of his career, he was Sputnik Monroe.
Love it.
And he really kind of came into his own as a character. And this is the thing I'm going to take from him. He would keep calling himself a diamond ring and Cadillac man. He's like, "I'm a diamond ring and Cadillac man."
Now, is he doing the diamond ring Cadillac thing before Flair at this point? Or
yeah, oh yeah, Ric Flair is a child at this point.
Yeah,
Ric Flair's a teenager. Ric Flair, this is like 1957. Ric Flair didn't get into pro wrestling until like 1976.
Okay.
Yeah, Ric Flair.
One of the things I see with
still in
Sputnik
Minnesota.
Sputnik was a very old, like an elderly man when he did, like I see was doing stuff with Cornette. Like, and Cornette was like, he came in as like a special enforcer because people were cheating and stuff. Yeah. All right. So he's now, when he's doing this, we'll talk about what he's going to do. I don't want to bury the lead. Go ahead.
So yeah, he basically, it's almost what you would associate with like a 50s, 60s, 70s pimp. He wore like the fashionable hat, a loud suit. He had a diamond tipped cane. He had a lot of jewelry. And yeah, he would talk about how he was the diamond ring and Cadillac man, 235 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal with a body women love and men fear. He had the whole rap down.
I love that.
I love this
I love
guy.
that so much.
He had the whole rap down. So then he winds up going to Memphis. And this is pre the Jarrett's running.
Now,
Memphis.
is he talking? When I say this, I'm not saying it's insensitively. I'm talking in 1950s, 60s terms. Is he talking and acting jive? Like he's
pretty much
he's the man of the people, but not the people that people like.
Right? Yeah, that's where he's going with this. That's where he's going with this. So he goes to Memphis, and he lives in East Memphis, which is historically a predominantly black neighborhood. And he would train out in public. He would walk around and do everything. And he quickly became the biggest heel in Memphis, by far. And and this is where what Sputnik Monroe is really known for really comes into play. So Sputnik Monroe is a local celebrity, especially in his little area of Memphis, and
he's literally the man of the people. Like,
and this is the time that segregation happens. Like legally, like there's places only white people can go, only black people can go. And he would go on Beale Street, which is now this huge, like Beale Street is probably the number one besides Graceland, the number one tourist attraction in Memphis. It's where all the clubs are, all like the jazz places, all the like everything. It's one of the few places in the United States that has laws where you can carry an open container. It's the hub of Memphis nightlife. And back then, it was exclusively black. Like the clubs in, and I'm going to use the term they used. And they use it for like baseball leagues. They called them Negro cafes.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what they were called back in the day. But they were like bars, things like that. And Sputnik would go to them. He would hang out with black people at black clubs. And eventually
he was invited to the cookout before anybody else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so what winds up happening is he gets arrested. He gets arrested for vagrancy, I believe was one of the things. And this is mopery, which is something they just used to throw in if they wanted to arrest somebody, but didn't have, like now they'll use disorderly conduct. Like, oh, I don't really have anything I can nail you for, but
you were being disorderly, and then when I tried to arrest you, you resisted. So there's your 2 Trump charges.
Yeah. So back then they had mopery, and so he's arrested and charged with mopery, and he goes to the courtroom, and I forget the guy's name, but he wound up becoming like I think a state senator in Tennessee. He hired a black lawyer. He was the first person in Memphis, Tennessee, a first white man to be represented by a black lawyer.
Bro, that's taking kayfabe real far.
No, I think he genuinely. I don't think he's playing a character when he thinks that they should be integration. I think that's his genuine thoughts. But yeah, like any good wrestler, he's taking the real thing and turning it up to 11.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what I meant by it. I don't think he was disingenuous with his character or his message, but I feel he was ahead of the curve of saying my message is also going to be I'm a bad guy, but some of the best bad guys are their message is hated, but it's justified. Yeah. And that's about like when Daniel Bryant was the Earth champion. He's telling us we should recycle it. They're like, "Boo, F you, destroy the planet." You know
and like, and even now, like I think the best case of this right now is Drew McIntyre, and he's doing wonderful stuff right now.
Yeah,
and it goes to this thing that Mike. I remember first time I ever saw this was in Mick Foley's book. He talked about Michael Hayes saying this. He's like, every great heel has to, no matter what dastardly things they do, no matter what horrible things they do, every great heel in their heart should believe that they're right.
Yeah. Kind of going back to before, like if you want to tie pop culture, we were kind of talking off camera in one of the streams about Marvel movies. And the reason why this movie responds so well to me is because you look at the villain of the movie and you're like, they're doing bad things, but it's kind of justified. And you kind of like Magneto. Magneto's a great villain because it's like, no, you don't accept me, I will force you to accept me.
Yeah.
Or like Killmonger in Black Panther. Like, no, you're not going to fucking hold back. Like our people are struggling and you're sitting here with all your rags and riches. Like help your people outside of Wakanda. Like it's good. That's a good heel has to have that one thing you can grasp on that makes them justified or good.
The righteous bad guy is the best bad guy. So I think Sputnik wound up getting arrested like 6 times, and it always made the news. It helped with ticket sales. And
I love it.
eventually they just stopped arresting him. Like, yeah, he's making more money off of these arrests because I think he had to pay like a $25 fine, which back then it would be like $200 or something now. But they were selling hundreds of extra tickets because they would run at the Ellis Auditorium, which was a big auditorium there. And the late 1950s, professional wrestling was always in a cycle of ups and downs, and it was on a downswing for the most part. The early 1950s were big because that was when TV was first starting to be a thing. And pro wrestling and boxing for sports programming were really easy to shoot. Like, it was hard to shoot baseball. If you look at old footage of like baseball and football games, even back in like the 60s and 70s,
Just
they
zoomed
didn't,
out.
yeah, they didn't really nail down the presentation of it until more recently. But wrestling, as long as you put lights over the ring and it, like, even if it was just the hard cam, that ring fits perfectly in a camera shot. Like, wrestling is a made for TV sport, art form, whatever you want to call it. So in the early 50s, you had Gorgeous George, you had that early first wave of TV wrestling. And at this point, it's starting to slow down a little bit. It was always pretty big in Memphis. The Memphis TV show, the Memphis wrestling TV show, even into the 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, until it's finally started to kind of wane, was the biggest show in wrestling in one area. Like, obviously shows are on cable or on like in big markets like New York or LA or something like that. Because Memphis, it's a city, but it's not like 30 million. It's not like New York or Chicago or something like that. It's like 400,000 people, 300,000 people. It's a small big city, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe twice or three times the size of like an Allentown.
Yeah,
We're not talking about a giant metropolis. But their wrestling show would come on, I think, either Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings at its peak, which would probably be like the 70s, 80s, when like Jackie Fargo and Jerry Lawler are doing their thing, would get like, for every 10 TVs that were on in Memphis, 7 of them were watching wrestling.
I love that.
They did Super Bowl numbers every week for Memphis wrestling. And at this point, when Sputnik's kind of on the upswing, it's doing okay, but it's not doing great. But what they wound up happening with Sputnik, and his counterpart was Billy Wicks, and Billy Wicks was the white meat babyface. Yeah, Lance Russell and Dave Brown were they were the big ones for like the 70s, 80s. Lance Russell, one of the greatest announcers, commentators there ever was. He's a guy that he should be talked about with Jim Ross, with Gordon Soley. He's that good. Lance Russell.
Where can you watch Memphis? That's not on the network, right?
No.
Is that on the other, like the one that Jarrett owns, Jeff Jarrett, like that classic wrestling network or whatever?
I don't think so. I think you could. You used to be able to find some of the stuff from the 80s on Amazon Prime, and I think it might actually be public domain. I think you can find some of it on YouTube. But you should.
If I can, like,
go ahead.
mind for a second, when he got arrested and he decided to have the representation that he did, what was the outcome of that? Did he end up going to jail? Like, what ended up happening there?
He would pay a fine. I think it was a finable offense, but they wouldn't have jail time for it.
I just didn't know if it was like because of the representation that he chose, like did they come up with like a harsher punishment or something like that because of the time frame that it was?
I think essentially what happened is that they had every time they would revolt against him and arrest him, essentially they were making the movement stronger, and it got to the point where it's like, we're actually causing more opposite. We're doing opposite of what we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to get him to stop being a white dude to hang out with black guys, and
now all this attention is here.
Almost like they don't want people to be together, and they need to keep us segregated and keep the poor away from the rich and the black away from the white, because if we all join together, we realize who the bigger enemy is.
And so eventually I don't think it was a jailable offense. It was just a finable offense, and he would just pay the fines. He was getting so much free publicity and making so much money, he would just pay the fines.
Right.
And the promoters at the time, which were Roy Welch and Buddy Fuller and George Goulas or Nick Goulas, they would probably slip him some of the money for the fines too, because they knew it was advertising. So what finally happens is he's not done. He's going to take this to another level. The territory is heating up. There's this big baby face, Billy Wicks, who's they say he was Elvis's favorite wrestler. You would think Elvis would be more of a Sputnik guy, but Elvis loved Billy Wicks, was just like blue collar, white meat baby face. You know, I'm a hard working man, and so what Sputnik winds up doing is the big arena there in Memphis where they do their shows. The Mid-South Coliseum wasn't around yet, which was the big one later. But they had the Ellis Auditorium, which was like a 10,000 seater, and that's where they would do a lot of their big shows every week. Memphis was a weekly territory. They ran, at least later on, once a week. And the Ellis Auditorium, you had the lower level, which was white only, and then the crow's nest is what they called it, which is like a Jim Crow allegory. And they also say because crows are black. And the black only seating was in the upper level. Paid the same price, but if you were black, you had to sit up top. If you were white, you got to sit on the bottom. Same price. Separate but equal. It was with the whole idea besides segregation, but it was rarely equal. So
now realistically, you're like, the back of the bus is way cooler,
right?
And you want to kind of be in the balcony, you know what I mean? Like,
I want to have the high ground. You know what I'm saying?
But you want to have the choice, though. You want to have the choice.
People of color to be somewhere, and then we're like, it's kind of fucking cool. We gave, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because here's what happened. And I'll say this: people of color are way more fun to hang out with, like in crowded events, because they get into the show. Because they work so hard to fucking be there, and they're not going to sit on their hands. They're going to fucking have a good time when they're there.
Right.
So they're probably up at the fucking top, and they're like, "Yo, that fucking crowd is bang! Like they're having a blast." like NXT has a group of people who come to their shows and they sit hard cam, and they have the best time every single show. And as NXT is going week to week, I'm actually watching it more for that section of the crowd because more and more people are joining them of having fun during the show.
That's
it's
really
fun
cool
to watch. Yeah.
So they ran into this thing where that part of the arena would be not only selling out, but they would have to turn it away. They would have to turn people away from that part of the.
Don't want to turn money away. That's not good.
And so that's happening, and the lower level, the whites only section, I mean, it would usually be like maybe half full, maybe a little more, but it wouldn't really sell out. So they're like, yeah, we're losing money. We're losing money on this. And what Sputnik would do sometimes is Sputnik would, because he was friendly with the security people and the ticket takers for the black section, he would have them underreported so they could get more people in. And like, well, there's nowhere for them to sit. They got to go down there. So we do like these little workarounds. But eventually he's like, enough's enough. I will not wrestle in the Ellis Auditorium unless it's integrated, unless everybody can sit anywhere they want. And so now he's even more of a hero. He's a hero not only to the black people in Memphis, but to the kids who, and he even said this, like a lot of your, I don't have you, but I have your kids. A lot of your kids, and mainly talking like the rich people in Memphis, your kids are being raised by black nannies who worship me. And there was like this saying that like I can't think of like the third person now, but every black household in Memphis has pictures of three people: Jesus, Martin Luther King, and Sputnik Monroe. Was one of the things
I love this guy.
And yeah, so he was like, I don't need you. I have my people. I have your kids. That's all I need. I don't want your support. And it became a huge thing, and he got it. They integrated the Ellis Auditorium, and anybody could sit anywhere.
Money talks, baby.
Yeah, it sure does. And to the point where this feud with Billy Wicks, where he would always get the better of Billy Wicks, would always cheat to win. At this point, they introduced the NWA Tennessee heavyweight title, which was the main title there, and Sputnik won it by nefarious means. And so they're finally going to settle this all. And they're going to do a match in 1959. It's too big for the Ellis Auditorium. They're going to an outdoor show in this baseball stadium called Rosewood Park. And the show drew somewhere between, they say, 13,000 and 20,000 people. Because they can't they think it was probably paid about 13, 14, but then people trying to get in broke down the gates and just rushed in. So there's probably close to 20,000 people there. It was an attendance record that stood in Memphis until the Attitude Era, until the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, because they opened up a new, bigger building that could fit more people than the Mid-South Coliseum. And it was to see Billy Wicks against Sputnik Monroe with Rocky Marciano was the referee. The famous boxer Rocky Marciano was the referee. And I think it wound up being a DQ, like Billy Wicks won by DQ, and it was like for $500 and a new car or something. That was like one of the things, because they'd always do gimmicks like that. Like Sputnik would wrestle bears. Back then, people would wrestle bears. They had like these bears that were trained to quote unquote wrestle. Sputnik wrestled Jersey Joe Walcott, another famous boxer. And one of the things he tried to do to keep his name in the public is there's this TV show, and I forget the name of the actor, but there's a TV show, Bat Masterson. Bat Masterson was like a cowboy show, and he's from Dodge City, which is where Sputnik was from. So Sputnik had this idea because they were doing like this rodeo festival in Memphis. He's like, I'm going to get to this rodeo festival. I'm going to get up on that stage and I'm going to punch the guy who plays Bat Masterson right in the face. just for publicity. And
wait,
so
the guy wasn't in on it?
No, not at all. No. So
like, my final will be paid.
He winds up not getting to the guy, but he goes, there's this other cowboy he gets into this confrontation with, and he is like basically him and this cowboy guy get into a fight, and the guy gets the better of Sputnik. But Sputnik said like, oh yeah, he sucker punched me, and then I slipped in cow manure, and he pipped me again, and he had all these excuses. Like, I dare that cowboy to come to the Ellis Auditorium. I'll face him in the ring. And they actually found the guy who beat up Sputnik, and he was like, "No, I'm going to go there, and they're going to kill me. This is a setup. They're going to literally kill me when I come through the door." So he didn't show up, and
which is even better.
So they got a guy. They said it was his friend.
Oh,
just some stooge, some wrestler. They came in and said that it was his friend, and Sputnik beat him up.
Yeah.
So they kept it going, and that match with Billy Wicks, the Rosewood Park match, that was really the peak of him, his star power. He stuck around through like a lot of the 70s and everything like that. And into the 70s, he wound up teaming with this guy Norvell Austin. Norvell Austin was primarily in Memphis. He was actually part of the original Midnight Express, but he was a black wrestler. And in the 60s and even into the 70s, the early 70s, like black wrestlers typically had to wrestle one another, or they had to be baby faces. I don't know if the fear was like if they were heels, like they would get shot or worse or stabbed or something. But usually if you were a black wrestler, like
power.
Empowerment.
Yeah. But like Bobo Brazil was always a baby face, and other black wrestlers at the time. Especially down there, like Ernie Ladd may have been a heel in places. I know he was a heel in the 70s in the WWF, but that would have been a little later. But Norvell Austin was where he would work in like Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. Black wrestlers either had to wrestle one another exclusively, or they had to be baby faces. Because now by the 70s, segregation is illegal. The Civil Rights Movement happened, the Civil Rights Act in the mid 60s. So Sputnik and Norvell Austin became a tag team. And they were a mixed race tag team. They were heels. And there was a thing that happened before with this team called the Interns, where a black heel wrestler dumped black paint on them. So what they they dumped white paint on a black wrestler. I apologize. They dumped white paint on a black wrestler because the black wrestler was a babyface. So yeah, they dumped white paint on him. So what they did is they were wrestling Robert Fuller and I think it was Robert and Ron Fuller. So Robert Fuller, you know, from something else, Colonel Parker.
Yeah.
So they dump black paint, or Norvell Austin dumps black paint on Robert Fuller and screams, "Black is beautiful." Or no, Sputnik does. I'm sorry. Sputnik dumps black paint on Robert Fuller and yells out, "Black is beautiful." And then Norvell Austin yells out, "White is wonderful." And then they both yell, "Black and white are wonderful and beautiful."
Now, when he's making these changes in these venues in this area, and maybe I'm asking a question you don't know the answer to, but it would be interesting to look into the history of it. But like, anytime where money trumps anything else, right? Like, so say if a promotion's like, "I'm not doing that," and then you go see it done, and you're like, "Fuck, that goes against everything I want," but it works. So we got to change. Did other venues in that area start going, "We got to stop the segregation because we can make more money if we do"?
That I'm not sure about. I wouldn't be surprised. Like at this point, baseball was integrated, but you didn't have Major League Baseball in the South.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of teams. Like I think the southernmost team I can think of was
Because
probably
money
like,
always talks. Money,
yeah.
money trumps hatred. Money. Same with talent. If you were a talented entertainer and you were black, you were allowed to do white clubs. You didn't get the right pay. You got
Yeah.
screwed out of your pay, but you were allowed to at least be in the door. You know what I
But
mean?
Memphis was it was a little more segregated than that. I think, and this was the first thing of maybe money trumping it, and Sputnik being there to be the leader of the face of the movement
Yeah.
too. But
It's good to have listen, like at that point in time, Sputnik realized like I can speak for the people because I have my I hate to put this term out there for you people who hate the woke words, but he had a privilege, and he
Mhm.
used his privilege to be a voice of a group of people who didn't have a voice.
And yeah, because it was to the point where shortly before all this happened in Memphis, they were going to do the play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and they didn't let them do the play because there were black actors and white actors. It wasn't an all white cast or an all black cast. You couldn't have a multiracial cast at that point.
Yeah.
That's why so many places did blackface, because in a lot of these spaces, especially in the South, a lot of these places you couldn't have a black actor and a white actor in a scene together.
Yeah. Well, even like predating that, like the Shakespeare Theater, a lot
They
of
could have
people
women.
they
All
were
men.
women weren't allowed to perform, so men played women. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's but what it wound up happening is he kind of just broke down that door. So yeah, by 1958, 59, he's integrated the Ellis Auditorium, and I think 64, 65 is when the Civil Rights Act fully comes through and it ends all of it. But yeah, so
That's a bold fucking move to do. Like you have to realize too, when you chase your dream and you want to be something that's going to make you a lot of money, some people say, I'm never going to buck the system because if I fuck up and I stand for something I may want, it can cost me my livelihood. Like, I want to be here and I want to be a part of this, but I don't like what's happening here. And if you're the voice to say, this is fucked up and it needs to change, a lot of people don't want the change.
You know
They
the
get rid of the
downside.
person who wants the change to happen, whether it's good or it's bad, because you don't want to be someone's making waves when they shouldn't be making waves. And it's for him to step up and do that on a racial level in that time frame is so bold.
And one of the cool things too is that his boots are now enshrined in the Memphis Rock and Soul Museum. Like literally, like all the stuff from like Isaac Hayes and Elvis and all these other people, and Sputnik Monroe's boots.
As they should be. Because once again, regardless if you're a pro wrestling fan or not, when people say I don't like pro wrestling and I don't want pro wrestling around, but I love pop culture, they're one and the same. And pro wrestling has been a huge catalyst for so much in pop culture, whether it's be movies, music, television, all of it. Like pro wrestling is a trendsetter, and for him to have that accomplishment outside of the world of wrestling, where outside media says, "Did this change the game for a lot of things, not just the pro wrestling world, but so we can do our art too," is a cool thing.
Yeah, and in Memphis, a city that had so much of a impact on civil rights. I mean, it's where Martin Luther King died. Like it's Memphis is a flashpoint for that movement, and Sputnik Monroe was right there with it.
Yeah, a black man tried to make a change and got killed for it. And Sputnik was the white guy making it. They didn't try to shoot him for it. At least we're not aware of. But it's a scary thing to stand up for at that point in time.
Yeah, it totally is. But yeah, that is the and unfortunately no longer with us, Sputnik Monroe. He did die on November 3rd, 2006 at 77 years old. But what a legacy. And I know they don't really put old timers in the WWE Hall of Fame anymore. They have that, I think they call it like the legacy wing of the WWE Hall of Fame, and he was put into that in 2018. And he was given the NWA's Humanitarian Award in 2012.
Was he ever in a movie?
I don't
I know
believe
this, like,
so.
sounds weird, but, like, I'm trying to figure out why I know him. Like, I know I've heard his name, but I also know I've seen his face, but I don't know where I would have seen his face because, like, it's
So
me.
there's someone on Redbubble who made a Sputnik Monroe shirt, like a generic Sputnik Monroe shirt, and it looks like a Russian star and Russian font.
That's really cool.
Yeah, because I'm trying to find like where you can get like a Sputnik Monroe T-shirt, and a lot of it just looks like fan made stuff.
Yeah, I don't think his estate is really deeply involved. And he had children. I think one of his kids was even a wrestler, but I think his son died before he did. He was married like 6 times. He was at some point. He didn't get wealthy off of this. He made a living, but didn't get wealthy. He was like, I think by the time like he was getting sick and everything, and he was at one point he was working like a gas station in Florida.
Just so crazy. Like, and that's what I'm saying, man. And sometimes even when you're the one who makes a change of catalyst, you still don't get the recognition you probably deserve. And that's why when you said the story of Sputnik back in the day, I was like, man, what a great story. And then you have some people in the know, like I had on the podcast. She's a sweetheart, but Angel Metro, she made a post one time and she's like, dude, Sputnik Monroe is the coolest thing in pro wrestling of all time. And I was like, I thought there was only like, I didn't think that many people were aware of this guy, like, or gave him the credit he deserved. But Angel's someone who stands up for the people too, and she's that rock star, fucking punk rock girl who don't like buck the system, because sometimes bucking the system is going to be good for everybody, not just for it's going to be good for the many, not for the few.
The Memphis Heat movie definitely brought him back into the social conscience for a bit, and it's somebody that like a lot of people within wrestling definitely know a lot about Sputnik Monroe. He's a guy that if he would have came a little later, but if he would have came a little later, the civil rights thing doesn't happen. It's already happened. But if he would have came a little, if wrestling history would have gone back a little farther as far as people, you don't really hear a lot about people from like the 1950s, besides like Lou Thesz and a handful of other people. Like it's really this into the 70s, we get to like the Ric Flairs, the Dusty Rhodes, the people kind of that lasting legacy. But Sputnik was one of a kind.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know in the chat. Let us know in the reviews of this podcast. If you're listening to this audio later, or if you're watching the content later back on YouTube, leave a comment. Tell us if this is a topic that you just heard for the first time. If you enjoyed the topic, leave us a little review in your wherever platform you can. If you're live, you can write a review right now. We'll put them up there, or we'll put them towards the end. Do you have any ideas? And also, let us know if you like topic-based stuff. So we do a lot of show reviews. Next week, we're bringing back our show review. We're doing the last time WrestleMania was in Philly. Before it returns to Philly, we're covering WrestleMania 15. But after that WrestleMania, we're down for another topic. Is there another wrestler you want to hear the history of? Maybe a wrestler you're a fan of that you would like to see, BP kind of dig in and finds a cool story or a storyline of this person. He likes a challenge. BP's a nut. He's our historian. Is there a topic, BP, that maybe you have on your head that you would like to throw out there of a story you would like to cover, or a wrestler, or the history of somebody?
Immediately, nothing like actually, yeah. There's I've been learning a lot more recently about the early days of wrestling, like the very early days of wrestling, like pre Lou Thesz.
Okay.
And one of the things I'm learning a lot about is this thing called the National Police Gazette magazine, which was a crazy magazine that was out in like, I don't know if it was the 1800s or the early 1900s. And this was basically the first wrestling magazines almost, because this
PWI
is when
before PWI.
Not even. It's a little different than that. It's more about this is when wrestling was like something. There were still shoots, but there was also a lot of working going on, and the Police Gazette magazine is where people would like make claims, and they would put I challenge any man to come here, because this is how pro wrestling started. Pro wrestling started in town squares. Yes, the circus, but the other place started was in town squares. Like when people say Abraham Lincoln was a professional wrestler, he was. And
also there's historians that think Abraham Lincoln was possibly bi or gay.
Maybe
that he like when his wife was out of town, he had a friend come over and they would share a bed together.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
So there's theories that we possibly had 2 gay presidents.
You think that we only had 2?
Well, 2 that people can go back and say, oh, they had they were really close to a dude and they shared a bedroom together and they were always deemed as just friends, but it was never talked about. Yeah,
the one people always say is James Buchanan, who was also the only president from Pennsylvania, and one of maybe the worst president because he kind of started the Civil War.
Stephen Chambers has one. I just like the name, Dick the Bruiser.
Oh, I Dick the Bruiser's fun, but I love the Crusher. It was his longtime tag team partner. We could definitely do the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser. The Crusher is basically the prototype for Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Gotcha.
The
What about Crusher Blackwell?
Different Crusher.
Dude,
In
like
fact,
800 pounds dude did a standing drop kick. He's a big boy.
Jesus.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he was called Crusher Blackwell because he feuded with the Crusher. And he was like, oh, no, that's a fake Crusher, that Blackwell, Jerkwell, Fatwell. Because the Crusher is one of my favorites. He was a Reggie Lazowski. He was the man who made Milwaukee famous, is what they called him. He would talk about going to the saloon and drinking a beer and dancing with a woman about 240 pounds. I love the Crusher.
I was going to ask, are you related? I wish we were. Maybe we are. Who knows? Maybe me and Jerry are distant.
I remember there was like
I don't know if that's a fat joke. If someone's,
I remember there was a thing about Jerry Blackwell. There was like this list. It was like only 5 people. It was in like one of those PWI magazines. It was like fat guys who can drop kick. It was like Jerry Blackwell, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was a big boy, but there's a photo of him doing a standing drop kick. It's very impressive in the photo.
So I have a suggestion, but I don't know if it's really like a good suggestion.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so we all know I don't know jack shit, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
She's about 3 months in.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
you're giving me too much credit. So if you could pick, this is my idea for like something that I really thoroughly enjoyed this episode because like it's history and I'm learning stuff too. But I think it would be really cool to do a history of like what's your favorite title belt. And like who all has carried that title belt and what's the story of that title belt? You know what I mean?
Well, that was something we were going to do back in the day and the episode never happened, but BP was going to do a title series and it wasn't the US title for WCW.
We actually did do one way back when about the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, but when we were going to start it back up, the US title was something we were going to talk about. And I don't think the episode ever happened.
Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, the US title is an interesting one. My favorite title ever by far is that old school 80s Intercontinental title with the globe and the one they had they brought it back and then they changed it for the one they have now. But it had when they brought it back, it had the white strap.
The one that Macho Man tried to clean and destroyed it. Yes. He destroyed a belt because he took all the bronzer off it. He took the gold plating off because he was trying to clean it to shine it, and he pretty much made it. He made it silver. And then there's a version of there's people who make replica belts and then make the IC title and then clean it
and then
strip it to give it the Macho Man title.
We could do an episode on weird belt stories like Pedro Morales pawning the WWF title.
Yeah. Fun fact: Gavin, because of Joe Ruda had a Macho Man IC title at a show, and he gave it to Gavin for free. So Gavin has the stripped Macho Man title.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But so we'll kick up some ideas. If anyone has any things in the chat, we'll put them in there. So Dick the Bruiser and Crusher is definitely one we'll add to the list.
As soon as we get off of this show, I'm gonna watch old Crusher interviews.
Yeah. Jerry Blackwell was talked about. Original Sheik brought up.
That's an interesting story because of Big Time Wrestling and his promotion in Detroit.
New episode on Dark Side of the Ring, Vice, March 15th for Earthquake.
March 5th.
March 5th. What is Earthquake have a dark history?
No,
we're gonna find out.
It's the way, from what I understand, and then the way they're advertising is more about how sad it was that he was a guy that was very universally loved. Like people really liked Earthquake.
Yeah, I loved Earthquake and Typhoon. They were one of my favorite tag teams.
And then he died very young. He was like he died very young of cancer. But I don't think he wasn't.
Earthquake was in the oddities for a little bit, right?
He was Golga, yeah.
Yeah, I like
he wore like the leather mask and like the Cartman shirt. Yeah, the Cartman doll.
And what was he in WCW?
Avalanche. Well, he was Avalanche, and then wasn't
he a shark?
He was the Shark, and it's funny. Because it's not funny, but he
like the Rock.
It's kind of funny.
No, he wore a shark mask.
Oh
no, he didn't wear a mask. He had like paint.
Yeah,
and
paint.
And he said he wanted to bite all the little Hulkamaniacs.
But he was one of the heels that Hogan would use to make himself popular because they were cool with taking working Hogan money, but never to beat Hogan. So
Hogan wrestled a lot of monster of the week types, even in the WWF. Like usually it was like a big guy. It was either somebody who was just an over-the-top star like a Randy Savage or a Paul Orndorff, but a lot of Hogan opponents were like just big dudes. King Kong Bundy, Earthquake, Kamala, and a lot of those guys wound up in the Dungeon of Doom. So
how about another one I know we did back in the day, but I think relevant wise might be another one if we want to do like a modern day one person soon. How about we do the history of R-Truth?
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
He's got a very long history.
He has a success story of going to prison and coming out, rehabilitating himself, and
the first Black NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, we did an R-Truth episode back in the day.
Yeah, very early on.
Yeah, very early on. So maybe that's another one we bring back, and because he's someone that people should know about.
Real quick about John Tenta, Earthquake. So he did a thing when he was the Shark. He went to Louisiana State University, even though he's Canadian. He went to LSU, and he had a tiger tattoo on his shoulder. If you ever look at old things of Earthquake, he has a giant tiger tattoo on his shoulder or on his arm. And when he became the Shark, he got it changed into a shark.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
No, he didn't.
We're looking this up now.
Dude, I remember that tiger tattoo vividly. As you're talking about it, Earthquake.
And then at the end of his run
tattoo.
At the end of his run in WWE or WCW, he was just John Tenta, and they did a thing where like they shaved half his beard, and he had to walk around for a while with half a beard.
Wait, is it?
I see it. It was a white. It was a tiger face, but then when he has a blue singlet in WCW, and it's a big cover up. It went from like a tiger, it goes up to almost his whole shoulder.
It's like a half sleeve at that point.
Yeah, I can't really see the details of it though.
Unfortunate.
I'm gonna look into that more, because even like his action figures had the tiger tattoo on it. Because I remember that was one of the first figures that I would buy, and I was like, "Yo, this fucking figure has a tattoo."
Instead of looking up tiger tattoo, look up shark tattoo and see if that'll come up with like a better picture of it.
It's not a great cover up, but I see what they try to do with it.
Yeah.
He just looked like a nice guy.
His reputation was that he was.
Yeah. Even when he looked like a bad, mean guy, like I don't know, he always looked like a fuck. Like I loved Earthquake and Typhoon. I thought they were such a fun tag team.
And I'm sure he wasn't treated very well in Japan. He was a sumo wrestler.
Ooh. And what about this one, the history of Orange Cassidy?
We could probably get some guests on for that. Like we know people that know Orange Cassidy very well.
Hey, but here's the thing: if we were to do the history of Orange Cassidy, like, is it disrespectful to say like what other gimmicks if they're not one to claim it? Because they,
but also if they're also like mid gimmick, do you bring up past gimmicks?
It's not exactly Clark Kent Superman that Orange Cassidy was firing.
Yeah, but I'm not opposed to that either. I love it. I love the fact that everyone's giving ideas and putting them out there. That's the thing. That's how we grow as a content. That's how we grow as a channel. Keep giving us fun ideas and give us. Dude, I'm telling you, Brian eats this shit up. He's an encyclopedia. He knows a lot about a lot, and if he doesn't know, he's gonna actively seek it out to learn about it.
Oh, the Crusher is the one that's really spit over. I love the Crusher. The Crusher is.
Can we do the Crusher but still include the fan pick of?
Dick the Bruiser. Yeah, for sure.
Dick the Bruiser?
I don't know if they were. This is something I have to look into. I don't know if they were really cousins, but they were like at the very least kayfabe cousins.
Okay.
Dick the Bruiser was very popular. He brought in. He broke Bobby Heenan into the business because
Henry said, "Is Orange Cassidy anything like his character?" Kinda.
I don't know the man personally.
I mean, when I met him, the 2 times I met him, he is very just like, "What's up, man?" Like he's not an excitable person. He's kind of just
laid back.
Yeah, he like his he's just that. He's very whatever. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know him on a personal level like that, but even like his friends say, he's very like he just energy is like stays kind of.
I'm present, but I don't need to be in your face.
Yeah, even when he's out and he's not Orange Cassidy and people come up to him, he's kind of like, all right, cool, go away. Like, I'm just having a beer. Like, you know what I mean? Like
take the real guy, turn it up to 11. That's the
much.
secret. That's the secret sauce in wrestling.
Ooh, Mad Dog Vachon.
Maurice the Mad Dog Vachon, yeah.
Dude, that fucking Territories episode with him in it where he's trying to jump out of a moving plane.
What?
Wrestlers are crazy.
Bro, we're gonna watch this as soon as we get off. We're gonna put that episode on.
A lot of AWA picks here. A lot of the Vern Gagne picks.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you guys so much. That's gonna do it for us. We will be back next Sunday with WrestleMania 15. So make sure you go watch do your homework. Go watch WrestleMania 15.
Speaking of Vachon, why is Luna in that picture? I don't even think she's on the show.
I don't know. It looks like Oddity's Luna too. because she has the wand.
Yeah. Oddities
yeah.
are kind of at the tail end. Yeah, 99, they're probably still around.
Yeah,
Henry wants to know which Vashon lost his leg.
Mad Dog.
Mad Dog.
Mad Dog lost
Who's
his
the
leg.
one? Who's the one we met? Was that Mad Dog,
I don't believe we met.
or was it Butcher Vashon? What we met?
We met
Luna's dad.
We met a Vashon.
Luna's dad was at.
Oh,
I
that
thought it
was Luna's adoptive father is Paul Vashon, Butcher Vashon.
Yeah, we met him at Hamburg.
Oh yeah, he was there. Yeah, Mad Dog Vashon is dead.
Yeah, we met someone that was tied to Luna, and he was at the Hamburg Films.
You also have met a few times Luna's ex-husband.
That is very true too. Yes.
Gangrel. But yeah, so yeah, Mad Dog was the one where there was a Shawn Michaels Diesel match where Diesel rips off his fake leg and tries to hit Shawn with it.
Did you see the new Diesel action figure?
I did not.
Oh, it's Diesel with like the short black perm, like when it's not full long yet with the glasses.
Oh no! Bodyguard
like
Diesel.
Yeah, it's Bodyguard. Dude, I need that figure. I have to get it because that figure goes behind Shawn. Like that's the two cool dudes in Attitude Diesel. Like, I fucking need it. I want to get a Luna figure. I want to get a Sherry figure. I want a Diesel. I got to get a Sid but the people who worked. I want to collect like the people who've been around Shawn for, you know what I mean? But they made Bodyguard Diesel, which is, I love it. It's such a good looking figure too. I think in that line it's Bodyguard Diesel, it's Kevin Nash Diesel where he has the black hat on and like the black t-shirt and he has the mic promo.
So his first night on Nitro probably.
Yeah, they have a pink Rey Mysterio, and
I'll say pink Diesel. I don't think that was a thing.
No, not pink Diesel. Pink Rey Mysterio. It's the new line. I love it. There's an Instagram account called Fig Heel. If you go check out Fig Heel, they show all the new figures every time they drop. Yeah, it's Monday Night War. Kevin Nash. It's Monday Night War Triple H with the red Triple H in the middle and the black pants. It's Diesel with the short hair. Actually, no, it's fake Diesel. Is that fake Diesel or is that? It's fake Diesel. It's a fake Diesel toy. It's Kane. It's Kane as Diesel.
It's the Kane Diesel. Okay.
I thought it was Bodyguard Diesel. It's not. It's Kane as Diesel.
I
still want it. I still want it.
Are they doing the fake Razor too?
I don't see a fake Razor toy, but that's 100% fake Diesel action figure. Have
they ever done a fake Kane action figure? Because fake Kane wasn't around forever. Yep, that is definitely
it's
Kane
fake Diesel. Yeah, it's Kane Diesel. And then it's a pink Rey Mysterio Jr. And if you buy all 4 of the figures, you build a referee Teddy Long.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's really funny. I love that. So it's funny. I always wanted a Mean Gene Okerlund figure, but the only way you can get a Mean Gene Okerlund figure, you have to buy the entire set to put it together. A Mean Gene. They never made a Mean Gene by itself.
Yeah,
and not as a Jax.
Oh no! I
had
to
buy all of them to put together, and then you own a.
Yeah, I had the old LJN Mean Gene, the dog toy Mean Gene.
Yes, yeah. But all right, well, that'll do it before we go on another 45-minute rant talking wrestling and nonsense. Thank you all so goddamn much. You guys are the best. We cannot wait to see you guys again for Tornado Tag. Check out other content. Like I said, it already just dropped, but Mad Max Zero's out. On Tuesday, Frightmare will drop, and then on Thursday, Cheeseburger will drop. Monday, we have 5 questions with ABJ, Rembrandt. And then the following Monday will be Officer Ronnie Moses.
Rembrandt 2 belts now.
What else does he have?
Nice.
He has the U.S. title, and the No Limits title is back.
Wow, you guys got it back.
He will be defending both titles against Andy Header on March 9th.
Ooh, so Andy can be Andy 2 belts.
He could be, yeah. If he wins.
Look at that.
That's what Kai just sent in the chat there.
Is that a real figure or is that a custom? Sometimes people make custom figures. But yeah, that'll yeah, go check that out. A huge thank you to PPW for letting me film there to get those 3-5 questions. More hopefully coming tomorrow when we wrap up at the Cheeseburger School. But like I said, links below for t-shirts, merchandise if you want to go grab it. We do have Tornado Tag t-shirts on the shop if you want to grab the Tornado Tag merch. It's there. And like I said, new episodes coming soon, and we'll be back for episode 113, WrestleMania 15. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time. Here's some music by the Converse Kid. We're out of here.
Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.